we bought 11 acres of raw land. There are dangers to look out for. There are pitfalls to look out for. It's not necessarily just buy land and do what you want to do. There are things to consider, and that's what this video is all about. If you're thinking about buying raw land to either develop for a homestead or a recreational area, whatever it may be, if I could equip you with one of many things, it is going to be hard to do everything by hand. So you are going to need equipment. I have a tractor that I use with a front end loader and a backhoe, and it makes the job so much more easier. For example, right behind me, I had to clear a driveway. A chainsaw and doing it by hand was possible, and we did a lot of it that way, but it sure was helpful being able to chain up logs and pull them and drag them to burn piles. So that is something to consider. And then also, we had to bring in some dirt. There's probably about 3 truckloads of dirt behind me, of clay, and having that tractor was very helpful. You can buy anything from a mini subcompact tractor like I got, all the way up to the 40, 50 horsepowers or more to help you do your project. Here's something else to consider. What is my water source? How am I going to get water to my property? If you buy out in the country or really an undeveloped area, you are going to want to check before you buy it on if you can get city water there. What I had to do is I had to actually have a well dug. I just got finished pouring this pad for my well house, but behind me is a water well. And so that is definitely something to consider whenever you're buying raw land is, how am I going to get water there? Another thing when it comes to getting a water well is you need to check the area and see how deep you have to go to hit water. And then also how much it's going to cost. This water well behind me, when it's all said and done, is going to cost me about $14,000. It cost me $12,990 to get what you see behind me here. Plus, I need to build about $1,000 well house. Another thing that you're going to want to consider when buying raw land is, are there any deed restrictions on that property? There's some properties that when you buy them, there's deed restrictions. And what that means is there's some things you can and cannot do on that piece of property. For example, I'm standing right here on a mobile home house pad. There actually are some properties out there that they have deed restrictions that you can't put mobile homes on it. The property that I have here is a property that has 0 deed restrictions, so I can do whatever I want to do on it. The only thing that I ever have to do is whenever a septic system goes in here, I've got to get a permit for it, and I also have to get it inspected. But anything besides that, I don't have to get any type of permitting. I can do whatever I want to with my land. Here's another thing to consider when buying raw land. How am I going to get power to it? Does it already have power to it? Because getting power to a piece of raw land can be very expensive. I bought this raw land and there was no power to it. I actually had to bring power to the land, and I want to say it was about 700 feet. If you can see behind me right here, I had to clear all of that so that they could get these power poles down this property line here to get power, which you can see my meter loop. I brought it in right behind me here. Getting power to this property going about 700 feet, it was about $10 a foot. So it cost me $7,000 to get power to my property. So here in Texas where I am, that's really, kind of how we evaluate it, process. It's going to cost about $10 a foot to get power. And then after you get power to your property, I'm going to take you right over here. You've got to set what's called a meter loop pole. This here is a meter loop pole. It's where they put the meter in so that they can calculate how much energy you use. And this meter loop pole here in Texas, it cost me about $800. So by the time I got power to my property here and put a meter loop pole in, it was roughly about $7,800 to $8,000 by the time it was all said and done to run it 700 feet. And if you're wondering how much power costs in your area, you can call a power company where the property is at, and they will be able to share with you how much it's going to cost per foot, most likely, to get it to your property. The best way to do is call the power company, say, hey, I need to speak with engineering, and then engineering will be able to point you in the right direction. Now, what about septic and sewer? You definitely have to, obviously, get that taken care of on your raw land. And here's another thing that I want to make you aware of is it's not just as easy as buying raw land and then you have a septic or you have a sewer facility to take care of those needs on your property. If they don't have sewer available, then what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to get a septic system installed. I would call a local septic company in the area where you're wanting to buy raw land and ask them, what type of septic system can I get put onto this property? They're going to ask you maybe a couple questions. How many bedrooms are in the house that you're going to be building? And they're going to be able to tell you kind of a ballpark price of how much it's going to cost. Why is the septic system size based on how many rooms? That's how they do it. They don't do it based on how many people's going to be in the home. They do it based on how many rooms are going to be in the home. So that's one thing that I learned that I'd love to pass on to you to make sure you're aware of that when it comes to putting a septic system into your property. Here's what's really important. You are going to want to make sure that a designer comes out, a septic system designer comes out to your property and designs exactly where this septic system can be. For example, on this property, I have a pond. I don't know if you can see it. Matter of fact, I'm gonna walk right over to it. I have my pond right behind me here. What does this mean? It means that there are regulations regarding the septic system that goes on to this 11 acres that these septic spray heads, I'm putting in an aerobic system, cannot they have to be a certain distance from the pond here. So I had a designer come out and they told me exactly where the septic heads could go, the septic systems could go. That way it just eliminates any type of trouble or confusion when working with the county or the city. So how much is it going to cost to get this septic system in here? I've got a 500 gallon per day aerobic system getting put in. You can see behind me, they've marked right there where some of my spray heads are going to go. And then I've also got some going in back up here. But to get a 500 gallon per day aerobic septic system put in here in Texas, it is going to cost me $6,200. And that is turnkey. That is the tank set, all the equipment put in for the tank to operate, and all the spray heads, spray line ran and spray heads set. So how much has it taken me just to get this raw land livable? It cost me $2,000 for the house pad. It's cost me $14,000 for the water well. It's cost me $8,000 to get the electricity ran here. And it's cost me $6,200 to get the septic system put in. So that puts me at a total of $30,200 just to get this raw land livable. It is a pretty cool project, I've got to admit. But anyways, thanks so much, Urban to Acres, for staying tuned, checking this out. Again, I hope this helps you out. If you haven't liked, comment, or subscribed, please do so for future updates. See you guys.